At your leisure, Madam Chairman.
Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are here on December 2nd, and I would like to ask if there's any comment from the public. Seeing none, I think that we will go right into what's on our agenda, which is Paul Rashinskis from the Cape Cod Commission to discuss affordable housing and where we're at with that and what's going on.
Good. Can we pass out?
Thank you.
This is my annual report to you of the affordable housing efforts over the last fiscal year. So it's back through last June 30th. And pretty much at least half of my time is taken up by the duties associated with the Home Consortium. So that's why a good deal of the report will deal with that. Last year we got a little over $681,000 from the feds. That marked the fourth year in a row that we've had less money. We've had a good turnaround this year. We've got $753,000. So the amount of funding has increased this year, which is a good thing. And I just, on the chart, just showed the amount of funds that we spent. It was a pretty active year. We finished 20 affordable units throughout the region with another 80 in construction, and most of those 80 were just about done, like the units in Harwich and Barnstable that Hack were doing and Hetch were doing. Actually got completed in July and August, so they'll show up in next year's report. I think one of the things we do very, very well at is leveraging other funds. As noted, they're virtually could calculate it, but just for the 8 projects that were underway last year, a little over $1 million in our funds resulted in over $26 million of other people's money. On the second page, there are 3 basic areas we spent the funds in. The primary one is housing production. And last year we had 15 projects that we managed over the course of the year, 3 of which got completed. I think it's worth noting that since we've gotten started in 94, the home funds have created 700 affordable units, which is 14% of the region's total historically. If you count it from when we got started in 94, home funds have been involved in about 40% of all the affordable housing created in the region. We're typically the smallest source of money. Even towns now are using CPA money or putting more CPA money in that we have. But I think we play an important role in terms of the show of regional support. So when folks go to the state or to HUD without looking for additional funding, the fact that they've secured funding commitment from us is a plus in terms of their ability to leverage state or federal funding. The second area is the down payment closing cost program. And even with the horrible lending environment that was out there last year, we still made 22 loans to first-time home buyers. This was the first year out of the last 5 where we haven't had to increase our original allocation for the down payment program. Housing Assistance Corp administers it for us, and as I said, the last 4 years they basically run out of money, in April, May, June, and we've always been able to increase our allocation to meet the demand. But last year was the first year that they didn't. This year we're going to have to do it again. They're just going to spate of closings this quarter. So HAC is actually coming forward to our meeting this month requesting another, actually $100,000 for the program. We allocated $175 so far for this fiscal year, and it's pretty much used up already. There have been a lot of affordable housing developments come online at about the same time, and I think that's in part, and also some market rate units that people for the home buyer tax credit have been taking advantage of. So we've seen increased demand for the down payment program. And the last is the home owner rehab program that assisted 7 households last year, almost 200 for the year. we've chosen the consortium chose not to fund this program this year. And in part, it was driven by the amount of our funding is pretty modest. We've only been allocating $100,000 to $150,000 for this program over the course of a year. At $25,000 a loan, that means we're doing 4 to 6 loans, or region-wide, which isn't much of a regional impact. And especially considering that rehab programs in Harwich and Dennis and Wellfleet and Provincetown get $1 million each from the state. To run a rehab program, you really need something of that scale. So we chose this year to not fund the rehab program and to really put the additional resources into the housing production allocation. And I think the last thing of note on the program is just we've done very, very well in terms of targeting a minority population on the Cape. 15% of our recipients over the last 4 years have been minorities, which is over double what the minority population of the Cape is. The next...
Excuse me. The minority population of the Cape is 4%.
6.6.
Is it up?
That's what it's been since 2000, Bill. If you look at, calculate minority,
I guess, okay, I'm just looking at one part of it.
Yeah.
Adding them all up.
Yeah, it is. The next 3 pages are report on our performance measurements. HUD requires us, the consortium, to come up with a set of performance measurements. So on page 4, it's the rental housing program. And we've made every objective over the 4 years that our consolidated plan's been in existence, with the exception of the number of units. We had a very ambitious goal of trying to create 60 units a year with our home funding, and today we've created 151. It was an incredibly ambitious goal. I think when going forward, the next plan, we'll take a look at whether 60 is realistic or we need to adjust that. But all of the other measures or objectives that we set down, we've met in terms of households at very, very low income, numbers that are accessible, numbers that meet Energy Star standards. On page 5, objectives for ownership housing. Again, over the 4 years, we're well ahead of goal, 66 as opposed to 40. Particularly, I think I'm impressed with the number of ownership units for folks at 50% of median or below, because that's just an incredibly tough number to meet for a home ownership project. And 10 units that we've created the last 4 years have hit folks at that median income or below. It's primarily the Habitat projects that we funded. Habitat's become a regular requester of home funds, and we funded 3 of their projects just over the last 2 years. And as well on the down payment closing cost program, we're well in excess of our goal in terms of numbers of loans spent, and again, the number of minority households assisted. The areas where we've struggled are on page 6, and it's basically the homeless and special needs objectives. On the special needs front, we hope to have created 20 units by now, and we've only done 2, and I think it's really a function of the funding resources that are out there. There's relatively limited state resources directed to folks who are creating housing for the special needs population, and the federal resources are even more restricted on that one. So in part, our ability to meet this objective is driven by people's ability to secure other funding. And on the homelessness front, permanent supportive housing, when we set up this objective of 8 a year 5 years ago, we were envisioning more projects like Bridgeport, where people are actually creating new housing that's direct, for folks who are homeless. And what's happened in the region is we've done well in terms of actually creating units for people who are homeless, but it's been basically done through the use of housing vouchers, either from the state or the feds, marrying that with social services. So homeless individuals and families are moving into permanent housing with supportive services, but it's being done basically by getting those folks a voucher and then hooking them up with Duffy or whoever else to provide the supportive service. So we haven't had a rental housing application for new development that's been targeted at folks who are homeless. So that's the reason why we haven't met our goal in that area, but region-wide we are. We just haven't done it with home money. So. And then the last one, last page on page 7, the soft second loan program. After less usage because the market prices were so out of whack for people to afford. We saw 29 loans made last year, and that trend is continuing this year. And particularly in certain parts of the Cape, folks up to 100% of median are eligible for the program and really could use this program to buy existing market rate homes. There are areas of Barnstable, Yarmouth, Dennis, Bourne, probably even other communities where this program really could work for somebody at 100% of median income to purchase their first home. In terms of other initiatives, last year we continued our technical assistance program. I did a workshop on getting units on the subsidized housing inventory. I was on the zoning reform task force that the governor set up. It's not clear if anything's actually legislatively going to come out of that. Legislation was filed, but it's stuck in committee right now. And participated on the grant committee for the Regional Network of Homelessness. Last year secured $1.3 million, and the application for this year just went in last week, I believe. And for this year, just a couple things I want to mention. One is that we're updating the region's fair housing plan. Last time we did this was 1997, and every year when I send the home, annual plan to you to sign off on to send off to HUD, one of the things you do is you say that the region is affirmatively furthering fair housing, and HUD is paying, for the first time in decades, paying more attention to fair housing issues as well as at the state level. And it's really gotten the attention of communities because Westchester County was sued a couple of years ago, and a federal court came down and basically said that for all the federal funds that they were getting to create affordable housing were basically being used pretty much in White Plains, and the more suburban areas of the county weren't creating any affordable housing. And basically the appeals court ruled that the county needed to spend $51 million of its own funds over the next, I think it was 5 years, to do affordable housing in the suburban areas of the county. So we have a consultant who's preparing an update of our fair housing plan. We're doing a hearing on it December 21st. And in it, it'll have a number of recommendations that both the consortium and the county would recommend taking in terms of how to further fair housing efforts. So just wanted to make you aware of that, but I think it's something that we need to do as part of the HUD funds, and it's long overdue in terms of the update. The second thing we'll be working on this year is that we're going to have to create a new 5-year plan that's required by HUD. So I've started going around to local housing committees just to get individual feedback on what folks see as the housing needs and priorities in their communities, but it'll be an extensive review of all the data that's out there and looking at the market conditions and basically developing a plan for affordable housing in the region, sort of a business plan for affordable housing. So that'll be coming. That has to get off to HUD by the end of May, so you'll be seeing that sometime in May at one of your meetings to sign off on. Also started having a series of meetings to look at the feasibility of doing a regional ready renters list. Right now, for homeowners who are buying affordable units that have already been created, there's a ready-to-buy list. But some communities, towns are looking at, can we create a similar list for affordable rental units when they come up for retenancy? So we're starting with Barnstable, Dennis, and Yarmouth right now to see if there's enough interest in the town to go forward, in those towns to go forward with it. So hopefully we can create something that will meet each of those communities' needs that we can do on a regional basis and hopefully create some efficiencies there and get the state to sign on. And then also we're doing a real small study, a feasibility study on a sub-regional housing authority. The commission got some state funds, and so East Ham, Wellfleet, and Truro housing authorities are looking at if it's some degree of consolidation or sharing of resources might make any sense for those three. So that's some of the stuff I'm working on this year.
It's a perpetual interest of mine as to why we can't get garden apartments as part of, as a response to some of the rental housing needs, especially since the comprehensive plans, talk about, incorporation of residential housing in commercial areas. The other part, in terms of your initiatives, the town of Barnstable and Yarmouth, I think, are entitlement communities for CDBG, right. And I wonder if we do we have any way of knowing whether or not those funds are actually going to, let's say, towards these initiatives to build up the affordable and low-income rental stock?
We do, Bill, in the sense that I get copies of, both their plan for how they want to spend, each community wants to spend the funds over the next year, as well as their reports of how they're spending it. Barnesville has directed a good amount of their CDBG funds toward affordable housing efforts. In fact, they've prioritized that over the social service amount of funding that they could allocate. Yarmouth they're doing both. They're a bit more mixed, and again, they only got, I think, about $180,000.
Yarmouth doesn't get much, but Barnesville is a pretty significant piece. And just following up on the CDBG piece, it's always occurred to me that other counties are able to, identify themselves as having enough governance to be able to support application of CDBG funds for this purpose. We were successful in getting on appeal eligibility for CDBG for energy efficiency, and for the other 13 towns, in the county, there must be some way that we could try to identify ourselves so that we could have this fund flow, because when we talk to the town of Barnesville, their concern has always been that that housing needs are across the whole county, not just in the town of Barnstable. And it seems kind of counterintuitive. If they're getting the CDBG funds and creating more housing, in the town of Barnstable, that the other communities have to go it on their own. I know Harwich is completing their comprehensive plan update, and our housing authority has made a contribution to what we think should be involved in that. And typically, it's my usual rant about single room occupancy and apartments, because that seems to be the single room occupancy especially seems to be an area that gets short shrift as we go through. The emphasis is on family units, and indeed, there's a great. I think we closed out our housing list at about 260. Was there, in the last census update, they showed that the town of Barnesville had lost 332 people since 2000. How is that affecting their eligibility to support some of these housing issues?
It has, at least in terms of the block grant. I think the last census, the most recent census showed, I think countywide, a loss of about 1,000 people, throughout the county. But it hasn't impacted their block grant application. On the rental side, just a couple, as you know, Bill, it's zoning in terms of what.
And we had to fight like hell for it in Harwich. And by the way, I haven't seen a spader on the ground yet on that project.
It will.
It better go before the 30th.
It will.
Before the 31st. Okay.
Got the attorney's ready to start working next week on this.
They'll only make a month later.
I think they're on. And just on the SRO issue, one thing that we, at least the Barnesville Housing Authority saw, they had a couple of SRO units in the development on Pleasant Street that they did 5-6 years ago. And they found them tough to rent. And so what they actually did is they actually went and used some CPA and block grant funds to basically create efficiency in one-bedroom units in lieu of the SROs. And the other thing on the rental side is what we've seen. There were 5 rental projects completed in 2009 throughout the county that we funded. And folks from Bourne to Truro, and folks got tons of applicants for them. And from talking with everybody involved, about half of the applicants basically were ineligible in the fact that they made too little money. So even in the affordable rents that were set for the home program is targeted folks at 60% of median and below, half the folks made too little. It's really the people making $20,000, $25,000 a year that really can't even afford the $1,100 a month rent for a 2-bedroom apartment. That's the real need and demand that we saw, at least this past year. And so, in that fundamentally, just Section 8 more rental vouchers, I think, is the real solution and answer to that issue. But that's what we're seeing, at least in terms of the rental development, in terms of what the applicants were and people look at. And as well, if I could just, on the smaller units too, a lot more just single person households. So the state policy forever has been do 2- and 3-bedroom apartments, but that's not the as much of the demand that we're seeing here. And so a number of the new rental developments that we funded have included one-bedroom apartments. And so we've been able to make the case to the state that there is a need for just single individuals who are working here just need an affordable place to rent to keep our workforce here.
I have a question on the governor's task force on the zoning.
Yeah.
What was it that the task force was trying to do, and what would have been the impact if they did get it through?
What they did, Mary Pat, or what the proposal was, is rather than create a statewide zoning, which a number of other states have done, they didn't think that would fly at all in Massachusetts. And so what the proposal was to set up a two-tiered system, was to create a set of benchmarks that if a community met, and typically it involved, you have to designate part of your community for higher density housing, not even affordable housing, just higher density housing. You have to create an area in your town that would provide expedited permitting for commercial and industrial development. There were a couple of benchmarks for open space protection. So it was trying to really promote the whole smart growth kind of development agenda. And so there were these benchmarks. And so if a community met them, then you'd be eligible for certain benefits in terms of zoning relief from, say, grandfathering, approval not required, other kind of zoning that we have in this Commonwealth that's 30, 40 years. Unfortunately, I think the best incentive would have been financial incentives, like it's done in the Chapter 30 and 40R, but that was off the table right at the beginning. So that's the basic framework, Mayor Pat, what they're trying to do is the state was trying to just encourage communities to do better planning and zoning and to try to provide at least a little bit of assistance in terms of zoning relief to those that give.
And try to provide incentives as well, or
the incentives for the results, because the grandfathering is a much longer period in this state than I think probably anywhere else in the country. Same with approval not required in a couple other areas. So that was the approach that the administration took on. And it was interesting task force because it had all the players in the room, because historically the planning folks have tried to get zoning reform, and the development interests have always been strong enough to block it. So there's been a stalemate. So it was all the various environmental planning community towns, housing folks were around the table. But given everything else that's going on in the Commonwealth right now with the budget, it's unclear to me how much political will there is to push this forward. And again, I think the best incentive would have been the Chapter 40R approach. And actually, if you do the right thing, we're going to reward you with X amount per unit or something like that. I think would be even more of an incentive to communities, but that just isn't financially feasible right now.
Yeah. Has your home consortium reviewed what the effects of House Bill 2242 might be? This is the bill that let's say, takes away the ability of a housing authority to have the final say on placement in in rental housing.
We haven't built that.
I think I would like you to look at that, because the affect that we're seeing is that when we go to town meeting for housing, there was an issue several years ago in Harwich about a level 3 sex offender being placed in a group home, and our ability to let's say to get DMH to at least negotiate with us up front was supported by what the present legislation, what present law allows us to do. We're fearful that this change that's anticipated would take that ability away from us. We finally got a letter amendment to a contract that says that they have recognized that right that we have, and that they won't arbitrarily place say level 3 sex offenders in housing that is not supported by appropriate counseling. Right. So the way we found out about it is the police called us and said there's a level 3 sex offender living in your housing. So it took several years, and what I'm concerned about is after having gotten that support, and when we go to town meeting, it's with the idea that local housing authorities have local authority. So.
And our last meeting, actually, one of the consortium members did mention that the Housing Authority executive directors had submitted a letter basically commenting on the legislation, but they didn't ask the consortium to take a formal stand on it. But I'll be happy to take a look at it.
But I think we should, you should be aware of what's involved with it. And although I have great respect for Cleon Turner, who was one of the co-sponsors of the bill, because he was, like I am, long active in housing. Perhaps somebody to find out what his thinking was, because I do know that he does do his homework as far as why he's doing it. But I just think it's a step backwards as far as making progress on getting community support, especially at town meeting.
So, Paul, just tell me if an affordable housing, a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom unit, what is considered affordable pricing? I guess as far as ownership and then renting. If I were to buy a
2-bedroom right now, the affordable price would probably range from $140,000 to $150,000. On the 3-bedroom side, $160,000, $170,000. It's driven because interest rates are so low. It's pushing the affordable price side. So you could make a case for something even $170,000. Maybe even I've had folks in Bourne say $180,000 even is doable. But most of the affordable housing that's home ownership that's being done currently is about $160,000 for the 3s and $145,000 to $150,000 for the 2-bedroom. Rental side, the home rents are roughly $1,100 for 2-bedroom. That includes your utilities. So figure $150 for utilities. 3-bedroom, it goes up to $1,300, with probably close to $175.
And in the single, efficiency apartments?
About $750. That's the one. The one bedroom would be actually I think about $800 right now. A single efficiency would be $575 or so.
And how many units of those are available, or are there any available at the present moment? They're all occupied?
I don't know how many are available. I know any that we've funded in the past on the single room occupancy are fully occupied by the last.
Right.
But I don't have a count in terms of the number there are of those in the region.
Now, I went to the ribbon cutting of the lovely one down in Truro that was completed this summer. Now, is that occupied? It is.
Yep, so they've got both folks in there. They're going to be starting another duplex hopefully this month.
Right.
We're putting a little bit of home funds in that, but that's a wonderful all-volunteer nonprofit that's put it together. So.
To me, I think your statement is right on the rental. A lot of people don't have the money to own a home, nor do they really want that responsibility. And I often thought, I go back to growing up in my neighborhood where families, that's where you had the triple deckers, and they were huge. They would go forever and ever. They look up these. And big families lived in these, and they rented, and they all did well. And the father had they had a decent job. Going from that to that ownership, it put such pressure, I think, on people. There was always this need of ownership, our ownership society, and I just don't think that is what people desire. Sometimes they just don't want to have that responsibility.
Right. And one of the things that's part of what we're in our last 5-year plan. Rental housing was number one priority, so that's part of the process we're going through this year. And I just Homes actually now created 767 new affordable units, 663 of which have been rentals. So in terms of the projects that we've been funding, it really has followed our funding. That's primarily what's being created with the home funds that come to the county. And again, with our workforce, service sector, retail, and I don't know I can't think of anybody I've met who left either high school, college, and immediately became homeowner. Just everybody was a renter
for a long time,
for a shorter or longer time, and particularly for the kind of workforce that we've got here, rental housing is critical for sustaining vitality and diversity of our communities. Just in this.
I absolutely agree.
How prevalent do you think it is on the Cape where people have accessory apartments in their homes, but they're sort of under the radar? Because if they were above the radar, they may or may not meet code.
Right.
And I know there's been some efforts to try to help people do something, maybe to use some funds to help homeowners bring these apartments up to code. And that would certainly help to boost the percentage of a credit for affordable housing units.
I've heard, I don't know here it's primarily anecdotal. And, I live in Brewster, and some of the folks there say, there's 100, 200, had been, family, apartments or in-law apartments now have been converted, kind of thing. And I hear that from other communities, but I don't think anybody honestly knows. I know in Barnesville they've created, I think it's about 140 units now under their accessory apartment program, and the overwhelming bulk of those were illegal that have now become legal. So
that's right. They had an amnesty.
They've got an amnesty program. Yeah. The accessory apartment program is just incredibly difficult to do in order to get accounted for the state. So a number of communities, like Wellfleet, for example, have just chosen, we just want to promote this, and it doesn't matter that it doesn't count for our 10% total. We just think it's a good thing to do to provide in small apartments for single people kind of thing.
Well, when you think of all the people all the homes only have one person living in them, that if there were some way to address that, it would certainly boost up.
In one way, with the garden apartment idea, we have clusters of
part of Barnesville's, when they started the amnesty program, they set aside some of their CDBG funding for that purpose. So if folks needed rehab to bring them up to code. And what they found is actually there wasn't that great a demand in terms of folks were able, either the apartments made it or it just didn't cost, or folks were able to afford it. So there wasn't a demand for the block grant funds that they had set aside. People were able to convert them without need of that resource, which I found interesting because that's what I would have expected as well with folks.
Yeah. But they are then obligated to have that as an affordable housing unit.
Correct.
They don't have the freedom of doing with it or renting it to whom they choose. And I know that in Wellfleet they're going over zoning and planning, and I'm sure you know Olga Khan there. And she's always driving these, and she makes very good points that people just, but they are putting in there to be able to do that affordable housing unit, the additional unit. And then if a person, say they access these funds, they do the renovation, and then they say, no, I don't want to do it. What's their obligation? Do they have to then pay back some of those funds?
That's usually how, there are different ways of structuring that, but that's typically the way it's done. You're required for whatever period, 15 years to have this, and then if you stop, then you either pay it all back, or you pay, if you did it for a third of the time, you have to pay the other 2/3 back, kind of thing. So it depends how you structure your program. But there's usually a payback in either the whole thing or a declining balance.
And that happens if, say, unexpectedly they're going to move. Say the person is now going to move with their children or something, and they've done this. And the house is going to be sold to people who don't want to have that unit as an affordable unit.
Right.
That somewhere in the sales transaction, that money is paid back as well? Or
usually what you do, the way the home program structure, you actually structure it as a mortgage. So there's the lien on the property, and within the note it'll describe paying back the whole thing upon sale, or 1/15 gets forgiven every year, kind of thing. And so during the time of the transaction, the attorneys will pick that up and whoops, we've got to pay this back to the town, or be to the town, or in order for the sale to go forward.
Well, in Harwich, the way the contract was written for the affordable housing piece, as far as it was in perpetuity. They could not sell for. They could not buy out of it. It was always. It has to stay that way. But I think a lot has to do with how the original one is negotiated, because there are several units that are coming out of that because of the lack of a time limit or a time certain. But I think what's happened in the last at least the last 10 years, that there's been more of a move towards trying to provide perpetual, inventory of affordable housing.
Right.
You can gain a certain amount based upon some equity position, but you're expected that you would sell it to someone who was eligible,
right.
and that would be enforced based upon the way the covenant was set up.
Right.
And could I ask one other question? Does the person who has that unit, they're presented with a applicant, do they have to take the applicant that is presented as, a person who's eligible, or do they say, I really don't want that person? We just don't. There's something about our chemistry isn't working. So, and can they just kind of keep putting that off, or?
I hate to say it depends, but I will say it depends on the bylaw. In terms of the state regulations, if you wanted the unit to count for the accessory apartment program, the way it's structured is that there's basically some entity that monitors a list of eligible tenants, gets a request in. I'll send you the top 3 people on the list,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get to interview and choose and go through the normal kind of screening process a landlord hopefully does, and if somebody has got really lasting landlord preferences, then you decide, no, I don't want to take the risk. You don't have to select that tenant. So the owner has the ability to
they have
make those decisions.
They have control over
only if you're occupying the same house, because if they own property and it's set up for rental, or it's in that category, you don't really have that ability to exclude people.
Yeah, actually, you do. Even in affordable housing developments, Bill, I mean, we do the lottery and folks are ranked, but then the owner or the management company then goes through that.
Has a certain amount of control.
Screening in terms of Corey checks and credit check or whatever, and so has the ability, even if people are income eligible, et cetera, and are on the top of the list, to say, no.
Yeah, there is some discretion based upon an anticipated ability to carry the cost of the unit, and I think that's part of it. The Corey part has been kind of problematic.
It's controversial, I know.
Yeah.
But so the rental history kind of thing, landlord references, people clearly can take that into consideration and make a decision as to whether yes, we're going to sign a lease or not.
Most authorities have an agreement with the affordable housing committees to provide some oversight and some screening. I know that we do in Norwich, and we're picking up some administrative oversight for the Ecumenical Council right now.
Yeah.
I think you heard about that.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Okay, so while we have you, and some people may watch us, other than those who want to.
This is number 1 in this time slot.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Actually, we should be getting royalties on it, but it's part of our job. If I am a person who is here on Cape Cod and I need to, I'm looking at housing, either rental or I would like to buy this little house over there and I just don't have it, what does that person do? What is available for them, and how can you help them?
Sure. I would think on the ownership side, I would say the one thing to do is to call Housing Assistance Corporation and to ask, because they have a pretty good handle on just about all the affordable housing units that are for sale in the region, either newly created ones or ones that are up for resale. And for that, and also since they administer our down payment closing costs program, if you need help with down payment or closing costs, then there's the possibility of getting up to $10,000 for 0% loan to help with the down payment and closing costs. So we've helped 550 households throughout the region purchase their first home. So that's available. On the rental side, folks could call me because I have a handle in terms of what rental units, at least newly created ones, are available for rental. And depending on the area or the community that folks are interested in, I could give them additional leads as to who else to contact in terms of potential leads for rental housing.
So it would be a Housing Assistance Corporation, which is HAC, for ownership.
Yeah.
And Paul Rashinskis at the Cape Cod Commission for rental. Okay, that's great.
There's one final issue, and this came up.
Okay.
Well, excuse me.
So the second final issue.
The penultimate issue. We were at a regional seminar or a forum over at the Four Seas, and one of the people who was participating, got up after gave a pitch for the need for more rental housing, was that there was not a level, level playing ground for the landlord. The big concern of landlords who we've talked to that participate in the programs that are administered by the Harwich Housing Authority and by others is that they don't. Some of them don't realize it, but they certainly realize it once they own the tenant, and that there needs to be some. How do we make this what I'd call an equitable situation for both the people that need the rental and the people that are interested in renting properties. There needs to be some ability to to work with with landlords so that they would be. They wouldn't have the feeling that they're basically on their own if something happens to the tenant. I think that's a great concern, and I would like to think that the consortium would work on that to see what we could do to help landlords be more in the picture, with regard to
have some rights as far as being able to.
Because I think that would go a long way.
Enforce certain conditions.
We've had several vouchers that have gone begging because no landlord would accept someone that was voucher eligible. They knew that our money was guaranteed, from Section 8 or whatever the program is. But the problem was that they didn't want to deal with any with the loss of rights because of that.
According to Massachusetts, you can't discriminate based on source of income, and a voucher is considered a source of income. So I just
that there is
be careful about, or landlords who act on that basis.
But put it this way, they will come forward.
No, I fully realize that, and that isn't. Certain folks that view Massachusetts as having a relatively balanced landlord-tenant. And I know that's clearly, I've heard that from a number of folks who are landlords, that they don't view it as quite as an equal balance in terms of that.
And Pat, there was
my final question. Well, many of the towns now, in setting their tax rates, have found that the assessed values of their properties has decreased considerably.
Right.
And I mean, up to $1 billion or something in Barnstable. Is there any value? What is the benefit, or is there any benefit in that to attempting to provide or produce affordable housing?
Sure. Well, a number of communities, Barnstable, Yarmouth, Bourne, Dennis is looking, have active buy-down programs.
Mm-hmm.
Purchase existing homes in the market, use CPA, in some cases home funds, to bring it $225, $250, and sell it for $150. So it takes, there's some rehab cost, administrative costs. So it's averaging, looking about at least $125,000 worth of subsidy to run those kind of programs. I was in Eastham yesterday to meet the housing trust there, and they were looking at that. Eastham, you're talking it'd be over $200,000 a unit to do that kind of thing. But those three communities are currently doing it right now. It's clearly the motherhood and apple pie kind of solution to affordable housing, because we're not creating, not knocking down more trees.
Exactly.
We're converting existing use. It costs a lot. It's a big subsidy number. So that's the trade-off. But we're starting to get to the point in certain communities, certain areas, where the economics of the amount of subsidy need is about the same for building new versus converting existing, and that's where it makes sense. Well-fleeted, it would make sense. You'd be spending $400,000 a unit to do it. I mean, you could do it, but it's just a policy question.
Small, a little older homes.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, I went to an affordable housing workshop in Framingham, actually. It was sort of brought there by a collaborator of mine. And there was a woman who ran the housing program in Sudbury. And that's exactly what they were doing, was buying down on the foreclosures and the using their own funds to buy down so that the new homeowner would have far less to pay. It's pretty interesting.
It was.
And it's been very successful.
Sudbury, I know.
Sudbury,
I can't imagine
My daughter used to
houses
live in
going down
Suffolk.
that
It's very
much.
expensive.
I know. I was
250,
surprised
300 and
too.
separate. I'm sure that, I suppose there must be.
Well, actually, I think there's a group of towns maybe that work
Yeah.
together, so maybe not all of them were actually in separate.
Yeah. But it's definitely it's labor intensive, so you need a good organization or entity to implement it. But it's doable. And as I say, the amount of subsidy in certain communities is about the same because what we're seeing now is it's $250,000 to $300,000 a unit to create a new unit. So for sale, so that's $100,000 to $150,000 worth of subsidy. If you're going to sell it for $150,000. So if the numbers are comparable,
So it
then
works.
it does make sense.
Right.
But you need a good entity to
Right.
carry it out because it's pretty intensive to choose the right house and to manage the rehab work. It's particularly challenging to find the buyers.
Falmouth
right
just
now.
found itself barely eligible for, because the median income fell out of 39 communities.
Right,
I think
for
we
the-
were 38 or
right, for
something,
the
so we
neighborhood
actually
stabilization,
qualified
for the federal
for
funds.
that
Yeah.
rehab,
Yeah.
community rehab.
Yeah.
So we're going to move forward with that
Good.
and see if that will help provide some better housing
Yeah.
for people who need it.
Great.
Yeah. The low-income community on the
I think you've covered everything, and I appreciate you coming by and updating us.
Yes,
and
this
we
has
will
been
see
very
you in
helpful.
May, and I'm
Right.
sure you'll explain to us everything that's before us.
Thank you.
And on the 21st, let me go back to that again. On the 21st, you said there's going to be a forum.
There's going to be a forum. We're actually going to hold it here because the commission. We're going to have it'll be a meeting for the draft of our fair housing plan.
Oh.
So the consultant that we've hired will be here. We'll have copies of the plan, but he'll go over what he's found in terms of. Part of what he's been doing is to look at what, if any, barriers there are to fair housing in the region for the various classes of people who are protected by state laws. One. And then two will be a series of recommendations that either the consortium or the county we would recommend taking to affirmatively further our obligations to promote fair housing in the region. And I'll have probably about a 21-day public comment period after the draft is released so people can get back, and within sometime in January we'll have the final report done.
I might just point out to you that in the community and banking from the Federal Reserve Bank, there was a very interesting article about how the reduction of cost for energy contributes to keeping people in houses. You can probably give me a reference to that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're actually, one last thing, actually the Home Consortium is actually at the forefront. We've actually, for our home program, on rental housing, you have a utility allowance, and we now have a separate utility allowance for those Energy Star homes that are created. So basically it reflects the energy savings for those developers who meet the Energy Star standard, and so it's a lower.
I think we have the largest concentration of LEED affordable homes in the United States.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks to the Cape Light Compacts grants,
Yeah.
leveraging
Yeah.
other funds that have been brought in.
Yeah,
That's excellent.
that Habitat project in Harwich is just spectacular.
When I say we, I mean both
Yeah.
the Cape and the
Right.
Vineyard
Right.
have the largest concentration of affordable LEED leadership, environmental, and energy design.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very good. All right.
Great.
Well done.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
A little note, factoid.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good one to have.
Is there anything?
No, I would move that we accept the summary of actions.
Second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Maggie, do you have anything you'd like
I
to?
have a few actually. If you don't mind.
Yay, please.
We have one human resource issue, which will require executive sessions. I'll save that for the end, so then you have to return. I have, just for each of you, I mentioned this, right? Mark and Paul are working on the recovery zone facility
yes.
bonds.
Yes.
So I have for you copies of each of them. Homework assignment. If you would just read them, we'll forward them, and then Mark and Paul have a little bit more work to do, but they'll be able to speak to this next week, which will be convenient because I think Paul is here now on the agenda in the morning.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure I give you, I don't mess these up, I'm going to give you each one. If you would take one and pass it down.
Or Paul
Paul Nitswicki. Tomorrow, next week.
Next
So
week,
you have the
okay.
facility bonds, and then you have the economic development bonds. So just read through those. They'll go over them, but if you have a chance, because it's dry.
Is
If
this
you
the
have a
one
chance.
did Mark
Don't
already
do it while
forward
we're
this?
asleep, while we're going to bed.
No, I don't believe so. Or he wouldn't be handing these out.
Did
So
Mark forward this to us before?
I don't believe
he
so.
went to the workshop last
Right.
Monday, right? The one that was in Plymouth?
Yeah. So I don't believe he handed.
I think he just forwarded his communication with Paul.
Right. Otherwise, I would even handing these.
All right.
Okay, so and this will be on the agenda next week. I just want to briefly talk about schedules and your meeting schedules, so I make sure that I get them.
Thank you.
I'm in denial, but today is December 2nd.
It is
And
unbelievable.
Next week, that we will be meeting in the morning, and I believe we have Andy Gottlieb coming in to give us a update on the summary of the study results.
Right.
Okay.
What time?
We'll be meeting at 9, and I think he's coming in at 10.
They're coming in at 10, he and Paul, because we asked them to come in with some, sort of their take on different models.
Get some suggestions as to how we go forward.
So a 9 a.m. start, and then 10 you have Andy and Paul. And then on the 16th, that is your holiday party,
Oh, yeah.
and that's from noon till 2, and then you have the assembly in the afternoon. That's
Right.
Okay, so should we meet whether...
You can meet. I don't have anything scheduled. I don't believe Mark does, so you can convene. You won't be meeting. You convene in your offices at 11 if you'd like, just to get county business, conduct county business.
Okay, what will we do for an hour?
Or 11:30?
11:30,
Okay.
when we go to lunch, right? Then we go home.
And
Then we go to the NOAA telethon, right?
Assembly's
That's exactly right.
Oh,
And we have to
yes.
get that
Is that
letter
what
out
time-
on that.
what time
That's
does
that
that-
evening,
4
that's
o'clock.
that night at 4 o'clock. That's
it
also
starts
the
at
same
4?
night as the Assembly's party, right?
Is anybody...
I know.
Well,
I guess we don't get invited to that.
Don't we get a
Yes, we
time,
do.
though, to go to the telethon?
Yes.
Usually they give us a
A
time
time
period
they
to
tell
go.
us to do that. But, I have a draft of a letter to send out to the boards of selectmen, and I've got to get that to Kara.
Okay.
So, and I think we got to get it sent out, so can we, we'll get everyone to sign that when they're passing through.
Okay. So that leads me up to 2 questions for you.
Yes.
The 23rd and the 30th. What
Yes.
is your preference or pleasure for meeting during that holiday week?
Okay, let me,
Well, the 16th. Then the next week is the 23rd.
And then the following week is the 30th. So do you want to meet both?
Well, I would say don't meet the 23rd and meet on the 30th.
Okay. Just want to make sure I have a
it
quorum.
has to be one or the other.
I would think.
The 30th
Take your
might make more
choice.
sense.
But I would think one or the other.
Let's see, is anybody going away during that week?
I come back on the, I will be away on the 23rd.
Okay.
So
So we're not
we'll
meeting
meet
on the
30th, right?
And a meeting on the 30th. And Mark may have budget meetings beginning on the 30th, but I'm not sure.
Now,
Okay. We need to get a schedule on it.
Their department budgets are due on the 18th, so we don't even have them due yet.
Okay.
Now, the 30th, that's not an assembly day.
Nope.
So we would meet in the
We
morning
meet in the morning.
at 9 a.m.
9?
Thereabouts.
yeah,
I'm just saying.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
Um,
And then your first meeting on the 6th, where you reorganize
Oh,
in
right.
January, that's your standard meeting.
1/6.
And so you'll be looking at your committee appointments, your committee, you're standing on all of the committees, your chairmanship, your vice chairman, etc.
Now, that would be the 6th. That would be an assembly meeting, right?
So you would meet in the
first-
afternoon.
So we'd meet in
and
the
that's a little
afternoon.
bit of a longer meeting, so
So
don't
1?
probably.
yeah, let's put it at 12.
12? Okay.
That's a lot of time. You want to show 12:30? Compromise?
All right, let's do 12:30. All right, so tell me again, on the 16th, we are meeting at...
The 16th, you're meeting at 11:30. The 9 o'clock on the 9th. I'll go right through it. 9 o'clock on the 9th. The 16th, 11:30. You're followed by your holiday luncheon at noon, and the assembly in the afternoon, and then the NOAA telethon. No meeting on December 23rd. And then you'll be meeting in the morning at 9 a.m. on December 30th. And happening again on January 6th in the afternoon at 12:30.
Okay.
Got it.
I left word with Mark that we have to complete his goals and review.
Yes, yeah, he
Did I
did.
do?
Yes,
I gave
he
that to
gave
you.
us
Okay,
that,
I did what I
yes.
was supposed to do,
Yes,
right?
no, you did.
Okay,
You
good.
did do that, and I do believe that we have to do that like next week so that
Yes,
he can
it's
come before
late.
us the week after. We're late, so.
No, I thought that was, we weren't going to do that in public
No,
session.
you said you were going to do it, Sheila.
I am going to do it, but then he was going to. Why are we doing it somehow differently?
No, usually the chair.
No, the goals were goals,
Yeah, the goals.
not the evaluation.
Right.
So run this by me again so I can communicate.
So I did leave him these messages, but I would like to meet with him so that we could go over the evaluation, and then he can come here before us and discuss.
And announce the goals after the two of you
Yes,
met.
yes.
So time on your calendar between the two of you to complete his evaluation, and then at the following commissioners meeting,
Yes.
he will present his FY10 goals.
Yes, we will do this. And
Got it.
Yeah,
That's
next
I will
week.
make sure that he contacts you,
okay,
and then update, then bring that back to the board.
right. And I sent you a CC about meeting with Elizabeth.
You did?
I think I did. It's called OGSM.
When did you do that?
Yesterday. I'll send that again.
I will, when we're done here, if you have a minute.
I will.
Because I was having an issue not getting your emails before, and then I got them, so I don't remember.
Oh, and you know why? Because I was on some other, I think it was a defunct email of yours.
Oh, I figured out why that Hotmail thing was
That
happening.
is in the wrong place.
Yeah, yours kept bouncing back. I had to go to
There were two routings on it. One routing was.
Oh, don't. This is mine.
Hotmail
It's saying the constable is driving me absolutely batty with
But then
this.
when
No,
I
you did it
looked
right.
into the
Yeah, but this one, that's
inside
not
of
in
my
there now. Instead of-
regular email,
There.
This one.
there was an enablement in there that
No, that's
automatically
Mark.
forwarded it. So
Oh.
when I figured
You know
that
what?
out,
I will go and
You got all the
copy this
ones.
because this is the fourth time
cancel
I have to fill this out.
that won't
Because they're
affect it. But I don't have Hotmail account anymore.
No offense, they are retarded. I'll be right back. I have to
Okay.
copy something. I'll be right back. So I'm going to make 2 copies of this. I'll be right back.
It's probably not a bad thing.
Let's talk about how we're going to get to Boston tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, we're going to
Yes.
the Latin
Well,
school.
We have to go to that thing.
Boston Latin
Do
School.
we have to talk? Should we talk about the? I guess this is part of the meeting.
Well,
Yes.
unless you want to talk about something else. I mean, we could do this after the meeting.
Yes, we
You don't
could.
have to
Yeah,
talk
this
about
is
it.
kind of. What I do want to say is that I met with the Board of Selectmen of Truro last evening. They asked that I come, and they held off writing any response to the Water Collaborative report recommendations until they had a chance to speak to one of us after public session. So, I basically stated that, I wasn't there to defend or anything of this report because we did not write this, and that it's still in consideration. They do feel very strongly. I think it was some of the wording of that did not go well as far as the executive committee over an advisory committee, and that we would choose different people. And I said that's not
How
what
can
we
defend something that we
did not
do?
right. And I said this is we had some of those same issues and we're discussing them. But I did bring up the fact that this is the time that decisions have to be done, and as I was driving away, I was thinking, I had put forward, I said, we're looking at different scenarios. We certainly don't want to take away the regional representation. However, the game has changed a little bit. The technical information is in. The studies have been done. People are aware of it. We've gotten some funding. We could still be seeking more. And now it's time, now people know that that this is in front of them, and then there's a price tag, and that gives you sticker shock. So, but at this point, it's time for the boards of selectmen to start becoming aware and educated as to what is at stake and what are the different strategies that they could use. Chatham is an example that sort of saw, they were mandated. They had to look down the road, and they put a financial strategy in action over 10 years ago. And when I think back, that was a strategy that was never really, it would have been a nice thing to have brought to the collaborative to say, this is what we're doing in Chatham, and this is how we're doing it. And I said, this is, I sort of see this board as being pretty much of what we already do, as far as you have the health department, you have the Cape Commission, and Andrew bringing this technical and tactical information together and presenting it to the board, and they sort of kind of do with it with what they do. But now is the time for political decisions to start being made. And your comment about the decision makers need to be in the room. So I threw out, what if it was made up of boards of selectmen. And of course and I said, and it could be done under your timetable. This is, your constituents, your town. And they didn't look at that. This is the second board now that I've said this to. And I think that is.
Right now they've never had the. They were always had the ability to appoint a board of selectmen member. They've chosen not to.
Right.
So the real question comes up is, do they have the political will to appoint someone who has the authority to act, or are they going to empower the person that they appoint with the authority to act? Like the RTA board, the MPO,
right,
which is basically an election and is a regional board. But as Andrew makes the point, both of those boards have their own money.
Right.
Okay, so the question comes up as we begin to look at the funding issues, and since the money will not be coming from any ability that the county has to raise money, the money will come essentially from the towns and the constituents in the towns. It might be the time when there has to be more of a taking a responsibility of moving forward. So I guess the message would be, are you willing to stand up and move forward, or is this one of these things where we talk about it for another?
I think by keep putting the technical people there, they are putting there's one step removed from themselves as to really having the responsibility of.
But part of the thing that the committee report suggested was that there would be a level of technical expertise. What the other part is missing from most of the appointments is the what I call the ability to understand financial management to the point for development. And I think that's where we are. Kind of talent really exists in the boards of selectmen either.
No, but that's right. But if part of that technical board is to look at financial strategies, they will be right there to get that information firsthand and bring it back to their board. And I think it's political decisions that need to be made.
You're right, Sheila. The political decision has to be made. But one of the things that I think that would come out of our deliberation is our expectation back to the collaborative to say that our expectation is that we see these creative models, that we see from the point of view of a watershed strategy,
exactly,
that we find out which watershed is at more risk at this time, and then basically concentrate
those 4 towns or 3 towns.
These are the towns that are part of that most at risk estuary or coastal embayment, and what are we doing to move that forward so we actually get a result that that says that we're doing more than just we have a problem.
And I don't think that was on paper, but I think that was part of the discussion that's gone on, partially maybe in that review or what has come out of it, to do it around the watersheds. And we talked about this last night, that I said, there will be, I think how it was originally set up, was it not, through the Blue Ribbon Committee, that they would be working around watersheds. That's sort of, over time just morphed to 15 towns coming to reporting on 15 towns.
Strong financial modeling that came out of it as well.
Yes.
Because that was certainly the intent when we all went around and talked to the town. So I think that that this is our opportunity, once Andrew and Paul have reported back to us, which we've asked them to do, that I think at that point, I think the most important thing is for us to communicate what our expectations are for outcomes. Because
I should bring you copies of the articles that former town manager in Falmouth has been writing for the enterprise on funding models for towns to do this, and combinations of things, like combinations of the betterment and the tax rate and others. And it's pretty interesting because he's pretty good, for combinations of debt exclusions, of capital exclusions, betterments, and spreading the costs out over a wider
over the whole tax base?
Over the whole tax base, instead of just betterment, or instead of just the town paying for the whole thing. And it's pretty interesting reading. It's sort of pretty technical, but I think it's worth my bringing in. I've saved all those papers, and I'll bring them in.
All 3 parts are available in last Friday's Barnstable Patriot.
Oh, they are? Oh, excellent. So I don't have to copy 3 different papers.
On the op-ed page.
And you can get that online, right?
Okay, yes, I can.
Last Friday.
Last Friday's paper.
All 3
So it's still on the stands today.
It's still on the stands today.
Okay, so we can just
75 cents, 3 parts, 25 cents per part.
You also said you were working on a handbook in the town family that we could use for...
A handbook? Oh, a committee handbook.
For our committees, because I think that was another part of what, in order to communicate our expectations to committees, I think that handbook...
it covers a whole lot of committees. It covers their organization, the memberships, any qualifications. It covers how minutes are kept, when the minutes have to be done, the fact they have to be turned into the town clerk. All those. So it covers a whole lot of the open meeting law, brief sections of the open meeting law. Posting agendas.
For the collaborative.
I'll bring in.
That would answer so many questions that they've raised.
That would, and also I did also put to the selectmen whatever comes out of our decisions, that they would probably see us again then at that time, and also I said, you have your health person as your representative. And some towns have, there's a board of selectmen on there, and there's, other health, Jerry is on it. However, there are many towns that have very good and well-meaning citizens. And, how much power does a well-meaning citizen really feel they have as far as making those decisions, and to come before you and say, this is something that you really have to do? Or when do you hear from those people? Do you make it mandatory that they report to you whether they have something new to add or not? Every 2 months, every 3 months, once a month? I mean, do you? They all kind of sort of looked a little like, yes. When was the last time? Yes, and that's
also with a chemist and PhD.
Yes, I understand that, but that's 1 out of 15.
Well, that's Harwich.
Yeah.
Well,
that Harwich.
And of course,
so next week we will be doing this. Okay, so I'm sorry. Maggie has more.
I just have one last bit.
I apologize. We interrupted your.
It's okay.
But
this is the executive session, so when you're all done,
I did want to say that I went to the coastal hazard seminar that they had over in Yarmouth. This is where they were looking at how to prepare for hazards and floods. I went to the Chamber of Commerce, 3 of the Chambers of Commerce meetings in Waquasit down in Harwich. Let's see, a week ago Friday, and they were talking about their concern about the bridge and the funding loss over there.
Could I just ask one thing? Maggie was sort of in the middle of. We only started talking about the water collaborative because we were filling in the gap of time. So let's let her finish, and then you can.
Now we could come back from executive session to open session because I wanted to talk about something else. So why don't we help you get out of here?
And then it's just an executive session vote.
Okay.
If you do that, I'm going to be in big trouble getting broken down and reset up for the assembly.
Okay. All right.
So when you finish, I'll wait. You need to finish filming, is what you're saying.
Well, the only thing I wanted to mention is that Representative Matt Patrick is put together a forum on Saturday.
Yes.
At the Mashpee Senior Center, and he's bringing in all the vendors of innovative alternatives like Pierre Lombardo and a group of other people. And it's a whole long day from 9 to 4 session on alternatives to soaring in case anybody's
I am going to
interested.
go there in the morning. I don't think I can stay the whole day.
Because I can't get there till after 11.
Okay, well, maybe
so
then
if you hear the morning part, I can hear
you
the
can hear the end of it. But it's we discussed this last night as well, that there are going to be many uses of alternative septic systems, but that's not going to, even George Hoyfelder will say they only clear up 50% of the problem only 70% of the time, and those are the best ones. So if that's not going to solve the problem, 50% of the solution,
70%.
Yeah, it's 50% effective only 70% of the time.
Okay,
so
that's all I wanted to say.
Well, I thank you for that.
Matt would love to have.
We will be there. Yeah, he doesn't really want.
His emails are like flash fire across the wires.
And Bill, did you have you wanted to finish up?
Yeah, I went to that coastal hazards that was put on by Coastal Zone Management.
Right.
It was very interesting. Let's see, that was Thursday the 19th. Friday they had the Chamber of Commerce of the Lower Cape Chambers of Commerce. That was attended by representatives of Delahunt's office, Sarah Peak, Global Area came down as well as the Corps of Engineers. Then there was the 21st was National Suicide Memorial Day, and there was something held over the Mass Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children in Hill. And let's see, on Monday there was the task force met with the RTA to talk about.
Yes, we were all there at that one.
Yeah, I think all three.
Yeah, we were all there.
Okay, for and I've gotten a further notice on that. Tom Cahill has sent me a list of the executive committee members and said that we would keep us in the loop. So they're actually meeting today, I think. So we're making progress on that. Let's see. The Cape and Islands Workforce Investment Board had their monthly meeting, and let's see. There wasn't really too much. There was some reporting on the programs for schools and careers. That's now been moved into the Workforce Investment Board activity, and it's not self-funding, but we're doing a heavy amount of more subsidy than we had before. See, we had Thanksgiving, and we'll see what's next on Tuesday. That's all I have.
Okay, and just one other thing, I did attend the Marine Minerals, the MMS task force, and I was really glad I went to that. It was very interesting. All of the almost all of Martha's Vineyard was there, and we were there, of course, and people from various coastal regions across Massachusetts. And what this is, it looks to me as though the federal government has taken a look at how what didn't work with and got people's ire up, other than just maybe having on the Cape Wind. I mean, the Cape Wind didn't come. Nobody wanted to say. Nobody likes to say the words. Until of course at the end I had to bring it up because it's this elephant in the room. But you could see the way the Martha's Vineyard people were, and we have the ocean management law now, and they have identified on the continental shelf, and I knew this, there's over like 1 million megawatts of wind energy that they're looking at, and they're now going to start opening this up for commercial production. And I think what they're trying to do is bring the communities together so that you're not going to have any real power in the end of saying it's going to fly or not going to fly. But I think what they're looking for is what's going to be the pushback, and all of Martha's Vineyard, they're all trying to pass their words, like saying, we feel like we're getting stomped on all the time. And so I basically said, so at the end of the day, we've all had this experience of Cape Wind, which could have probably been going forward had it gone differently. They approached the situation differently. And so even if they could build into their program that there be an incentive. When the federal government leases federal land for development, they have the lease. The state that borders that land or where it's taking place gets 27%. And I said, somewhere in there, if you could, then the state has control over what they do with that 27%, which means we'll get, nothing in the end anyway, like we usually do. So I said, if it could be mandatory that those local communities then get a percentage, 2%, 3% of the 27%. If you could do that, and as far as pushback, there's got to be something that's given to those communities that are directly affected. And I think that they're trying to go about it in a different way. It's going to happen. It has to happen as a nation, as a member of the global community. But I think that they're trying to be as respectful. They're opening up. They're doing more, at least in the beginning. So it was a very. I was happy I attended, and it was mainly about the zoning of these things more than the production.
Didn't the involves get quoted in the article that I read? It said that Felton State Waters regional authorities, like the Martha's Vineyard Commission, would have something to say about it. It still doesn't answer the question for the Cape Cod Commission with regard to Nantucket Shoals.
We brought that up, and we said, what happens with the Nantucket Sound? So, given that, Cape Wind is permitted, and she turned around and she says, it has no permits yet.
Right, no permit.
And and it's only a section of that federal section within Nantucket Sound. And we said, well, so does this apply to Nantucket Sound? And we only have a 3-mile jurisdiction. And no.
The interesting part is...
The Nantucket Sound is off the table.
What is that?
And I don't understand why that is. So I want to go back on that. And because what if it just all collapsed tomorrow? Then it's open, and there's still sections of it that are open that this Cape Wind is not going to be developing. So why is that off the table? And that's the one crux of the issue with the Cape and the island.
It has to do with how federal waters were designated back in actually the Reagan administration. And before that was state waters.
I understand that. Yeah, they went over many, many miles. So anyway, but it was interesting, and there'll be more.
So what about the contract that was announced by that Cape Wind has negotiated with National Grid? I think you forwarded that to us today.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to look at that. I don't know.
How can they sell something that can make them?
It's America.
Yes. And quite frankly, when you look at the project, when you look at and you look at what they're going to do on the continental shelf, it's already outdated for what they can produce compared to the more deep water
technology. It's just all of the announcement is that they've agreed to do negotiations, and they'll still have to have a proceeding and a filing at the DPU.
Right. Is that what you already done as well? Cape Light Compact did that a long time.
Cape Light Compact has had discussions with Cape Wind since 2004, and we have consistently asked Cape Wind to come back to the table, and they have consistently said they were not ready for negotiations.
Okay.
So I think the people need to hear that.
Yeah.
We've been open.
Right. Okay. And Pat, did you have something else you wanted to add? All right. Done? I think it is. We will now move into executive session.
I move that we go into executive session and not return to open session for the purpose of...
Well, then we will go into a recess because we're going to be over at the assembly. Second?
For the purpose of
personnel matters. Okay. All in favor? Aye.